time with Defense Mechanisms. I wanted to take a couple minutes today and talk through my training rifle setup and some new things I'm going to be trying out for 2023. This here has been my training rifle for the last 3 seasons. It's served me well. As you can see, it's kind of on the lighter side. I tend to like lightweight rifles. I've had surgery on both of my shoulders, and I tend to really benefit from a lighter rifle. So some things that I do to keep the weight down: I always run dark hour, dark light rails. I really like them. I don't think many people have heard of them, but I really love their rails. And I run medium contour, government contour, or pencil contour barrels in pretty much all my rifles, just to help out with my particular issues as far as my ability to hold a rifle for a long time. Otherwise, as far as kind of the key accoutrement, if you will, is I've been running them all. And this is C1. I'm a civilian dude, so I'm limited to civilian lasers. And this is a fantastic unit. This really lights it up a long ways out. However, it might be more than this rifle actually needs, which is part of what we're going to talk about today. This rifle is really a 200 and in kind of rifle. It's not to say that it's not capable of more, but I really look at this as it's a 12-inch rifle, and I really look at this as a CQB tool, point blank and in type rifle, zero distance and in. And so I'm not intending to employ this rifle at the distances really that this MAWL is able to illuminate to. But I've really enjoyed the setup with the MAWL. It allows me very intuitive controls with my support hand operating the laser function and white light and back and forth very well. But it does require me to have 2 separate activations for white light and laser. And so the first thing I want to talk through today is a new laser unit I'm going to use. It's everybody in the whole world, I think, is going to think of it as a downgrade, but I'm going to talk about a couple reasons I'm kind of interested in it. So this year, I built up another rifle. You can see it's very similar. The only difference is it's ugly and it needs to get painted real bad, but we'll be talking about that in another video, I'm sure. But laser unit on this rifle is a D-Ball A3. And the reason I've gone with an A3 is because it has a really unique feature. Only a few lasers have it. And in civilian lasers, I honestly am not even sure if any other civilian lasers have this feature right now. And that's Viz override. And so the way this unit is set up is it has 2 crane ports. One is the standard crane port that we're all used to that operates the unit in whatever mode it's in. If I put it in a Viz mode, it gives me Viz. If I put it in an IR pointer, it gives me pointer. If I put it in pointer and illuminator, it gives me both, right? That's the crane port that we're all used to. But this unit has an additional crane port. Right now I'm in an IR pointer and illuminator mode. And right now, if I hit the main button for the unit, it'll be in IR, and none of us can see that. Maybe the camera will pick it up a little bit, but probably not. However, if I hit the secondary button, it's going to activate this crane port for the Viz override, and it's going to give me green laser. And so I don't know if you can see that. There, a little green laser. And the thing that I like about this, with the way the Unity Axon switch works, is it gives me both the green laser, so I can immediately have access to my green laser and my IR laser based on what button I push, but then I can get the benefit of simultaneous laser, Viz laser, and white light activation. And this is something I'm very excited about. Instead of with the MAWL, where if I want to use Viz laser and white light, I have to activate one into a constant on situation and then activate the other. So if I want to have my light on and then I hit my laser when I need to shoot. Whereas in this situation, if I want to be dark, I can be dark right up until I need light, momentary activation. I have laser and white light. And if I want to be constant on, I can be constant on with both units, so I have an aiming point the whole time. And that's something I want to try out. I'm not sure that it's a make it or break it feature. I'm not sure that I'm suggesting everybody go throw away all of their other lasers and step back to these D-balls. But what I do think is it's an interesting enough feature that's unique enough that I want to understand it. I want to really wrap my head around it. I think there's value for emergency aiming under night vision. If I have to get out of my night vision to PID and I need white light, there's a real value in having an aiming point there versus having to work into passive optic, obviously be under white light, but work into my primary optic. I think there's some value to that, and so I'm excited to see it. I think also there's value when working in mixed company, where some of the team you're working with has night vision and some don't. We do a lot of laser link-ups, which is a completely different video, but we do a lot of laser link-ups, and if everyone's under night vision, that's really easy to do in a night vision mode. But if some guys are under white light and some guys are under nods. It can involve switching modes. And so I'm excited to try this out where I can use white light and vis laser with the first button, or the IR settings with the second button. And so I can get whatever I need at a moment's notice without having to switch modes. Now what I will tell you is the D-ball does switch modes a lot easier than the Maul does. I think talking about the Maul, really there's only two things about it that I'm not in love with. And the first is switching between Viz and IR. I have to take my support hand completely off the weapon. I have to reach up in front of the weapon towards the muzzle. If I didn't have a suppressor on, it'd be equal to the muzzle. And then I have to manipulate this giant flip cap, which is super loud and always cumbersome. And if you don't oil it, it will stick. I had mine stick so bad that I've had to use tools in the past. And then Bill Pete from TMBC showed Jesse where to oil it, and Jesse showed me, and now it turns, I won't say great, but I'll say better. But that kind of just talks about why I'm switching to the D-ball, or at least going to try that this year. Things that remain the same between both of these rifles, and I think it's really important to note, is I run my white light about as far forward as possible because I really like mitigating suppressor shadow. I'm not super concerned whether it's on the left or the right. As you can see, it switched sides with this new unit because the way I can activate it with this Axon switch doesn't require me to be able to get it with my support hand. I can't activate the light with my support hand on this side, but also using Surefire tail cap, I haven't given myself an activation point with my physical activation point anyway. I have to use a switch. So I was able to relocate the light to the right side, which is definitely a little more comfortable. But I'm excited to try this out and see if Viz Override is really that big a deal. If it's going to be, I don't know. I'm excited about it. I think there's value there, and I'll let you know. I'll make a video in 24. We'll talk about it. Next thing I wanted to try for 23 is, you can see on my gun that I've been using, my rifle I've been using, is I'm using a Comp M5 on a Unity fast mount at 226 optical centerline. And tall mounts are really handy. I'm a large built human. In general, I'm thick, my arms are long, my neck is long, distance from my eye to my nose is long. And so having tall optics is helpful for me. Also, I do a lot of night vision shooting, and I train a lot in a pro mask, and both of those things really benefit from having tall optics mounts. I probably don't need to tell you guys that. The internet is abuzz with tall optics mounts. But what I will tell you is, since the release of the Hydra mount, I have been slightly curious about uber tall optics mounts. We'll call this 226 a tall optics mount. We'll call that Hydra an uber tall. I believe it's a 291. Right, so about 3/4 of an inch, just shy of 3/4 of an inch taller than the Unity Fast. And I didn't really want everything that the Hydra mount offered. I don't really like the idea of the diving board. I don't really want to have the laser up higher. I actually really like how close my laser is to my bore and how it cuts the offset in half for me. So I can learn red dot offset, and then my laser offset is half as long as I roll the rifle, so the laser's at 12 o'clock. That really makes it easy for me, so I'm not learning two different offsets. I have my red dot offset, and I cut it in half with my laser, and I found that to work very well for me. Distances of 15 and in where offset really matters. So I didn't want to switch to the Hydra mount. I really like the fast mount, but I wanted to try it a little taller. So what I've done is I've switched optics, and I'm going to be trying out Aimpoint's new Duty RDS. And a lot of people would say that this is a step back, and I probably could have went with Comp M5 S or B, and that's definitely true. There is one other reason I wanted to switch from the Comp M5 though, and I don't think it gets bright enough. I find myself running my Comp M5 at max brightness almost all the time. That's out in daylight bright, but also I run my primary optic at white light modes, even when I'm using night vision, because white light is my emergency. And so when I have to go to an emergency white light situation, I want to be able to have an aiming point in my dot, so I don't set the brightness of my Comp M5 for passive aiming with night vision. I set it for aiming with my white light in worst case scenario where that white light's splashing off a white wall 3 feet from me, right? So it's very bright. I run at max brightness all the time. And honestly, the Comp M5 isn't bright enough to compete with modern weapon lights. The Rain 3.0 that I've been using is a very bright light, and it just can't compete. So I was looking to switch to T2. T2 has an additional brightness setting that the M5 doesn't have, and you'll see if Jesse does this video, or if you see Jesse's rifles, Jesse's going to be using a T2 in 23. But because I also was interested in taller optical centerline, I decided to go with the Duty RDS, and it has the same additional brightness settings that the T2 has, so I'm excited to have just a little more brightness when I need it, while being, I believe it's 0.46 inches taller. So I'm going from 226 to 272, and is that right? Yeah, that seems right. You'll tell me it's wrong, something like that. The point is I'm getting about a ½ inch taller, and so what I find is when I present with the Duty RDS, when I naturally present from a low ready, that it's much closer to my eye line. I'm still finding the dot in the very top of the window, which says to me, for the way I like to shoot, again, I don't like to get deep into my rifle right now. I'm on the backup sights, this is like a 154 height. I really like to present naturally and work from here. I find that the slight loss of recoil control is mitigated by my ability to just see my world and pick up information and process what's around me better by not dipping my head. And so I still would potentially benefit from an even taller mount, but I'm going to try that out this year. It's certainly a noticeable difference from the Cop M5, where I try to bring it up into my eye line, and my natural eye line is above the entire optic, versus with the Duty RDS, where my natural eye line is right into the top of the window, and I just get the dot. With the Comp M5, I still have to dip my head into it. I have to meet them in the middle. And so I'm looking forward to trying that out this year to see if that makes a big difference for me to not have to do that. A couple other little things that aren't super impactful, but some things I want to try. I'm going to try this Unity Tactical VFG. I typically have been using the Arasaka indexer, and I've really enjoyed it, but the Axon switch activates with a little different angle, and I want to try this VFG. I think it'll help me control this better and not slip around as much on this angle. Let's see what else. I'm also going to be running a little bit smaller stock. I talked about liking to build light rifles, and so I'm just going to try out a lighter stock. I always have some B5 somewhere if I need them. I'm going to try out this new B5 grip. It doesn't have the beaver tail. I never liked their beaver tail grip, but I have been chasing the perfect grip for a long time. And I really like this Tango Down grip, the BG18, I believe. But the B5, the new P22 that they're offering, has just a little bit more girth. It's a little girthier. And as they say, girth is king, right? So for me, it just fits my hand a little better. The angle is very similar. Realistically, the texture is very similar, but it fits my hand just a little better, so I'm going to try that out. And then the last thing that I'm going to be doing different is my charging handle. Typically, I run ambidextrous charging handles. This is a Geisley Airborne. I've run Radians, and Breek Arms sent me a charging handle. There's a cool dude from there that I'm friends with. And they're all great. These ambi charging handles are awesome. Some of them have built-in gas mitigation shelves, and that's certainly handy. I shoot suppressed a lot. But what I have run into a lot with these ambi charging handles is when I go to front sling, I roll the rifle away from me to keep the fire control off my body. And what this does is it takes the ambi side, it just happened, it takes the ambi side of this charging handle and makes it exposed to my kit. And I've had it catch on my kit in the past, and not necessarily to the point where it took the charging handle out or it pulled the bolt out of battery, but I've had it do that enough where it just hung there and got stuck and caused problems. So I'm going to give it a try to this Fortis charging handle, and I can't remember the model name, I'm sorry, but it's strong side only. It still gives me the aggressive strong side charging handle that I'm used to. So for all my operations, I'll still have the aggressive strong side handle that I'm used to, but when I go to front sling, I won't have anything to catch on my kit. I'm not sure it's going to make it or break it, but I think it was annoying enough that I thought about it, so I'm going to give it a try. A couple other things have changed, but really the consequential ones we've already talked about. The point here for me is that you should always be evaluating your tools, and you should always be willing to make changes to them. Not necessarily, you don't always have to build a new rifle, but maybe try a different grip if you're having problems. If the Tango Down's a little slippery, well, the B5 is a lot better, more aggressive texture, right? If If you find that your beard hairs are always getting pulled in your stock, try a different one, right? There's lots and lots of great kit out there. I'll find out if this kit for me is better than what I used before. Maybe it will be, maybe it won't be. Maybe one piece will be better, maybe another piece, whatever. But I think the importance here is to don't get stuck in one way of doing things, and don't settle into what I have works. I figured out how to make it work. It's good enough. Always be evaluating, always be questioning, and always be looking to figure out how to make it the best. I hope this is helpful for you. I'm excited to see how these changes impact my training, my shooting. I will probably do a follow-up video. If every one of these ideas was terrible, we'll just tear this down and it'll be like it never happened. But otherwise, thanks for your time. If you guys have any questions, contact at Defense Mechanisms, hit us on social. Promise we'll answer you back. We won't be mean. But thanks for your time. Hope you learned something. Talk to you next time.